Meanwhile, what do the Patriots preach? Do your job. And Jimmy G did just that with no Gronk on the road against a formidable Arizona defense. 2 rookie guards, 2 backup tackles. Garoppolo went 24 for 33, 264 pass yards and a TD. The Cardinals missed a last-minute field goal, lost by 2, 23-21. Max, let's start with you here. What did we learn last night? Well, for those who didn't already know it, Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, is basically unbeatable. Unreal. That's really what, if you needed to learn. In opening games, in his last 13, he's now 12-1. 12-1. And Jimmy Garoppolo, 24 for 33, 264 passing yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He looked good. He absolutely looked good. But they were doing this on the road without Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever, without Gronkowski. Remember when I said, hey, rest Gronkowski? Because you're probably going to lose the game anyway, but if you mess around and win, right? I mean, they messed around and won. On the road, the toughest game on their schedule, considering personnel available and who they were playing, on the road in Arizona to start the season, and that was before you knew they weren't going to have Gronk. They win that game? They mess around and win that game? It's why the Patriots, sometimes on paper you see them and it's not a great year for them, and the playoffs start and you go, well, they're not going to do business in these playoffs. And sure enough, they're in the AFC Championship game and it's not even considered a successful season. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback ever. What we learned yesterday, for those who didn't already know it, is Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, is completely unstoppable. Do you understand the Arizona defense was top 5 rated last year? Is an elite defense. They got the Honey Badger back. They have their full complement of players. And Chandler Jones, too. They have everyone, and new guy, right. They have everything they need there. They also have time to prepare, and they're at home, and you don't have Brady or Gronk, and you win. Bill Belichick, with time to prepare, just remember that, because people, for some reason, tend to forget it. I can't say it enough.
I am not going to sit up here and take anything away from Bill Belichick, who happens to be the greatest coach of our generation, as far as I'm concerned. You have people out there who want to swear that the man cheats. Well, damn it, learn to cheat as good as him, okay? I don't want to hear these complaints, okay? Because he's doing something right. Let's give the man credit where credit is due. We all know about the greatness of Tom Brady. I'm not about to bloviate about that. I can't believe you're letting the Arizona Cardinals off the hook. This is not just about Bill Belichick. This is about the fact that a coach that we revere, that we have profound respect for, who deserves our respect in Bruce Arians, had his team ill-prepared. This is about a team, the Arizona Cardinals, that showed up. They looked weak. They looked they didn't look ready. They didn't look prepared. They didn't look focused. It almost seemed like, okay, they don't have Tom Brady. They don't have Rob Gronkowski. We have nothing to worry about. We're 9.5-point favorites according to Vegas. We're going to handle our business. Everything is going to be all right. The Arizona Cardinals essentially look like a team that thought they were champions instead of recognizing the fact that they're not. That would happen to be the Denver Broncos. And by the way, the Denver Broncos beat the Carolina Panthers, who smacked you around in the NFC Championship game. To get smacked around in the NFC Championship game, to leave that residue in the minds and the hearts of Arizona Cardinals fans for the entire offseason, and then come and open this season on Sunday Night Football, nationally televised, and stink up the joint the way you stunk up the joint. If you are an Arizona Cardinal, you should feel ashamed of yourself this morning. You showed a dereliction of duty. You showed no focus whatsoever. Jimmy Garoppolo showed up and looked better than Carson Palmer. Jimmy Garoppolo and the New England Patriots scored. The Arizona Cardinals didn't score in the first quarter. When we look at some of these things here, remember, they finally did something. They finally forced a turnover. Chandler Jones, DJ Swearinger, they both created a turnover. What happens? They get penalized for choreographing the celebration. Okay, which basically neutralized them to such a degree. You're down 10-0, and you're celebrating. What the hell is wrong with you? See, this is the problem. And then when you see this lack of focus, that's the kind of stuff that you can point to. Arizona is too good talent-wise to allow their performance to look the way that they did. They tried to come back. They felt they came up short. But in the end, 10 of 16 third down conversions for the New England Patriots. Jimmy Garoppolo moving this team like he's an experienced veteran. What happened?
What do you think Jimmy G is on the roster for, Stephen A? You think Belichick's just carrying him?
So that's what we're doing now?
Well, he's
so
good. He's good,
Hold on, Max. So that's what we're doing now?
Yeah.
What we're doing, we're going like this. Anybody that wears a uniform. So in other words, you lose Tom Brady. It's no big deal because we got Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, I mean,
we
saw them lose Tom Brady and plug in Matt Castle and win 11 games that year.
In 2008, I got it.
And Brady's been in since then. What do you want?
All I'm trying to say to you is this. Jimmy Garoppolo it's not about you stepping on the field wearing the New England Patriots uniform. It's also the opponent that you're going against. The Honey Badger was back in the lineup. Peterson was there. Right. Chandler Jones is there. Calais Campbell and the crew are there. What the hell are you doing allowing Jimmy G to look like the second coming of Tom Brady in his first start? I mean, what are you doing?
Belichick puts him in a position to win. Look, Mariota is a really good young quarterback. I think we all know that. We accept that. He had a harder time
yesterday, though.
Right. He had a harder time against the Vikings defense than Garoppolo had against the Arizona defense. I think that's more of a commentary on Garoppolo and especially Belichick and the way he uses his offensive players than it is about Arizona rolling over and having their belly scratched.
I have watched games, for example, last year during the regular season, or whether it was last year, the year before, where the Kansas City Chiefs ran roughshod over the New England Patriots on a Monday Night Football game. What I am trying to say to you is that as great as Bill Belichick is, the bottom line is there have been down moments in his career. He hasn't won every Super Bowl. He hasn't always gotten it done. As phenomenal as he is.
So Jimmy Garoppolo must be pretty good then.
What I'm trying to say to you is, well, you could say Jimmy Garoppolo is still good.
You were
the
saying
jury is still out. I'm saying the Arizona Cardinals were that bad yesterday. That's what I said. I don't know how the hell you got my message confused. I thought I was very, very clear and succinct and fluid in my commentary. I think that the Arizona Cardinals did not show up last night. I think they dropped the ball, and I think they need to get their act together and stop acting like they want something.
So in that case, of the last 13 teams the Patriots have played opening day, 12 of them have dropped the ball. Because that's what the Patriots do week one. They beat you because Belichick just on a normal week is tough enough. But now he has weeks and weeks to prepare. He knew he wasn't going to have Tom Brady available to him. He knew Gronk was banged up. I mean, he had to be preparing for the eventuality, the possibility he wouldn't have Gronk. So now Belichick has weeks and weeks to prepare for you. So, he's going to beat you.
Well,
That's the history of
you got weeks and weeks to prepare for a Super Bowl. He's lost a couple of those. Now, I don't want to hear that argument. The fact is the Arizona Cardinals are a fully loaded crew that is more than capable of playing better than they played last night and allowing the New England Patriots to convert on 10 to 16 third downs with Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback, okay, without Gronkowski, all right, at his disposal. It's just ridiculous.
Maybe it's the best thing that happened to him, and they'll respond to it.
Maybe
the
so.
Patriots would be 6-0 in the Belichick era, if not for two superhuman performances by the great Eli Manning. Other than that, other than two of the most clutch performances ever, they'd have been 6-0 in the Super Bowl.
Nothing is certain in life but death, taxes, and the Patriots will do their job. A little later, we'll discuss Jimmy G, that pretty boy swag, and if he is the future. But coming up, let's go back to the NFL now. The national anthem protest continued in week one. Just like the Seahawks, the Chiefs linked arms during the national anthem at Arrowhead Stadium, and cornerback Marcus Peters raised his fist. Then Patriots tight end Martellus Bennett and defensive back Devin McCourty stood with the team during the singing of the anthem. Bennett and McCourty both raised their right fists in the air at the end of the anthem as well. Stephen A., are these protests starting to get old?
I'm sure it's getting old in the eyes of those who never wanted the protest to take place in the first place. But it's certainly not getting old to me. It's certainly not getting old to a vast majority of black men and women in this nation who feel that as far as we've come, we still have a long way to go. Max repeatedly in the past has quoted the great Dr. Martin Luther King, who stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We recognize that, and we recognize that those statements were made and protests were encouraged even in the throes of civil rights legislation being implemented into the fabric of the of America and its culture. Why? Because no matter what trials and tribulations we go through, even with our Pledge of Allegiance, it still recognizes that it's a long way to go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stand one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Those last verses of that line, a vast majority of African Americans in this country do not believe it has been applicable to our community. And so when you look at a Colin Kaepernick and he makes such a statement, and you see a Brandon Marshall making the statement that he made playing for the Denver Broncos, yet a product he was endorsing, the company basically severed their ties with him. It shows how we have a long way to go. Here we are in the United States of America, and First Amendment of our Constitution talks about freedom of speech, okay? And so this guy doesn't disrupt the game, doesn't harm anybody, doesn't get in the way of anything. He simply took a knee to bring attention to what Colin Kaepernick had brought attention to, talking about the plight of African Americans in our communities as it pertains to the actions of some police officers. Not police brutality where we want to taint the entire institution of law enforcement officials, but just to bring attention to the fact that there are a few of them who have gone rogue. It has happened for decades. It happened in Cincinnati years ago. It happened in Detroit years ago. It's happened in New Orleans. It's happened other places. And, and now more attention is being brought to it again. Because this man, Brandon Marshall, decides to join in concert with Colin Kaepernick to take a stand in an effort to bring attention to the plight of African Americans, you as an endorsement company are going to sever ties with them. As far as I'm concerned, that reeks of hypocrisy. It is as un-American as it gets, and it's something that needs to be recognized here. In the end, Max, what it comes down to is that, again, raising your hand like Martellus Bennett was doing and others, getting on a knee. You are not disrespecting your military. I certainly appreciated your position Friday, Max, when you alluded to how on 9/11 there's a heightened level of sensitivity that we should all have. I totally agree with you that. Totally agree with you. But in the end, at the same time, if you're not talking about that, if you're talking about what our country is supposed to stand for, but attacking its hypocrisy due to its inconsistency, and all you've done is take a knee or raise a hand in the air or a fist per se, and that is enough for Brandon Marshall to lose his endorsement deal, I think it speaks to how far we have to go and how far we have yet to go because of actions on the part of others who have dissenting opinions about something like that. It's really unfortunate, it's sad, but it is what it is. But I think that the people, to answer the question directly, the people who were against it, certainly they're getting tired of it. But a plethora of African Americans and minorities in our nation, they're not tired of it at all. Their mentality is, we're just getting started.
That was beautifully said. And let me say the NFL, who I have targeted as being hypocritical in the past on a variety of issues, including this one in the sense that those in the NFL who object to it, the NFL paid patriotism. John McCain, not exactly a bleeding heart lefty, right? John McCain with the report, talking about how the NFL, discussing how the NFL was taking money from the military to stage these kind of patriotic, and then the NFL was shamed into giving the money back and not doing it anymore. So I've taken plenty of shots at the NFL along those lines. I need to say the NFL has handled this properly. They have a rule that it's encouraged to stand up, it's not compulsory. They have gone by that, even though this is spreading and it's becoming more of an issue. And the other way, where people are like, well, this doesn't make sense. Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz and Williamson, the Titans linebacker, and McAfee, the Colts punter, they wanted to wear on 9/11 cleats that were not regulation because they were American flag cleats. That's an ultimate show of patriotism. And the league said, sorry, but that's not uniform, and you're going to have to be fined for that. And as people of conscience, they said, all right, that's okay. We're going to do it anyway. And if this really is handled properly, that fine money will go to some kind of a patriotic cause. If everyone's so pro-military, obviously we're pro-men and women in uniform, then fine, give the money there. But my point is that the NFL is here being consistent. They're saying, here is the brand, here are our rules. We're not going to bend them or break them. That includes if someone's protesting, we're going to let them protest. That includes if someone wants to make a patriotic gesture, okay, but here in the rule, there's going to be a fine for that. And I think they're being even-handed and correct about their approach here. And so I never give them credit for much. Frequently, the NFL, because they're this monolith, is the target of criticism. Anything, we all love the product, and yet we find reasons to criticize them, among everyone else who does it. But here, they're actually behaving very well. And I think the reason for that is, as Josh Marshall of Talking Points Memo points out recently, there is the most powerful political force in this country right now is actually a multiracial coalition. You talk about people of color being, being discriminated against and obviously systematically oppressed throughout the history of this country. And is that the driving force here? Absolutely. But there is actually a multiracial coalition in this country now bringing about political and social change. And the NFL is recognizing, because it's not just black players. There are white players in various sports saying, wait a minute, I stand with Kaepernick, or rather kneel with him. And that, frankly, there aren't enough people of color, at least African-American people, to form a powerful enough political or social political coalition to really affect social change to the extent that it needs to be affected by themselves. You need a multiracial coalition. Well, I actually think that's what's going on here, and that changing wind is what the NFL is responding to.
Let me chime in here by saying this. I disagree with the point that there are not enough of us. Certainly you need a multiracial coalition. I definitely agree with that, because ultimately that's where the potency comes from. But let's be clear. We all know that affect people's wallets and their hearts and minds will follow. And black folks in the United States of America spend in excess of $1.3 trillion. And so when you look at it from that perspective, if black folks were unified, all right, resolutely, I might add, in a quest to bring attention and fairness to the issues that permeate us as a society, not just as a black community, but as an overall American society. And we were willing to put our money where our mouth is collectively to make sure that we affected other folks' wallets. I assure you, we would have the potency and the power to make a difference. The problem is, on far too many occasions, we appear more divided than we should be. In this particular instance, I mean, even now, you've got players locking arms with one another to be about all in, all one. But Colin Kaepernick is talking about police brutality against people of color, and particularly the African-American community. You have those who are siding with Kaepernick, and then you have those who are kneeling for another reason or are raising their fist for another reason. And so because of that, again, there has to be some coming together. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is what you said, which is absolutely correct. The NFL has handled this beautifully. And to me, it's how everybody in America should handle it beautifully. The people that had allowed Brandon Marshall to endorse their product should simply have said, he has a right to do that, okay? We don't necessarily agree with that, but we shouldn't require that everybody agrees with us in lockstep in order to be an endorser of our product. That's really un-American to me. It reeks of hypocrisy.
Yes, and my point about the multiracial coalition is that people of conscience, people who are socially conscious, should want to stand with the oppressed. We see a racial divide in our country. And there are a lot of, I mean, there's no other way, white people who are aging and older and angry about things, who want to hold on to the status quo. But that doesn't represent all white people.
That's right.
And there are those who are socially conscious who say, wait a minute, our fellow citizens are suffering. There's been a history of oppression in this country, and we stand with them because they are America. So if they're suffering, we need to stand there too, because that means America is suffering. And that climate is what the NFL, I believe, is responding to. I don't know that the NFL responds this way 30 years ago, when that climate did not exist to this extent.
Well, Max is absolutely right. And at the end of the day, it comes down to what I've said repeatedly. Even when blacks were marching, civil rights legislation and what have you in the 60s, there were white people who joined black folks and helped make it happen. That ultimately is ideal. But before white folks were willing to jump in and help, there was a coalition of African Americans who came together and marched in lockstep with one another to get things done, even with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, not necessarily having the same approach to addressing particular issues. Their goals were clearly the same.
I want to add one more thing, and I know it's a separate issue. You guys are both from New York. Yesterday was September 11th, 15 years ago, since that tragedy terrorized our nation. Our heart goes out to all the victims, the loved ones, their families, the first responders. They're the real heroes, and we will never forget.